my worldview, and I would justify why
Okay.
my
What
worldview ought to be the case.
presupposition in the argument from motion would you say that you don't accept?
Yeah,
Hi,
like
Blue.
the potency to act framework isn't really necessary.
Well, I didn't ask you if it was necessary. I asked you if you accepted it.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay. Why do you reject act and potency as metaphysical principles?
Yeah, because there are things that can actualize themselves. I'm not talking about composite things. I'm just talking about things like even one substance, a different type of quantum particle could actualize
That's
itself.
not a refutation for the metaphysical principles of act and potency. That would be a refutation of the principle that potency cannot actualize itself. But that wouldn't be a refutation for the principles simplicator. So what's the refutation for the principles, not the application of principles in other, say, entailed principles?
Wait, I could use this as a reputation because I'm just going to say like potency and act is not going to be universal. Under the argument that
That's also
Thomas
not the
Aquinas,
argument.
under Thomas Aquinas' argument, he assumes that all reality is going to be divided into like potential and actual, but I wouldn't
No,
agree
he
with
does
that.
not assume that. That's not true. Where does he say
Wait,
that?
yes, he does. Like if you're using the correct version of the argument, then yes, he does.
Where does he assume that? Just show me. If he says it,
Yeah,
then
we
you
can
can
look
show
it
me.
up.
I'd love to know where in the first way St. Thomas Aquinas says that one of the things you need to accept for this argument is that act and potency are universally applicable.
Yeah, it says it. Oh, I could just type in the chat.
Sure. Let's grab my phone so I can this out. Yeah, I'm sure he says it in here. This text that I read 1,000 times. Let's open this up. Question 2, Article 3. What part of Question 2, Article 3 does he say that these are universals?
Right, I'm just gonna type in the chat.
Now it is clear that a thing is moved inasmuch as it is in potency to that towards which it is moved, whereas it is moved by that which is in act. So where is he saying in this that it's universal?
What? He's assuming that every change, okay, potency becoming act, there's no exceptions that he considers.
Wait, hold on. Wait, that's very interesting. That's not what you were talking about a second ago. I
Wait,
agree
yes, it
that
was.
St. Thomas Aquinas thinks that every movement from potency to act is a change. I agree that he believes that. But you are saying that St. Thomas Aquinas thinks that act and potency are universal principles that apply to everything, and that's part of the first way.
Yeah, I still hold to that.
Okay, so where does St. Thomas Aquinas say that? Because in this particular text, all St. Thomas Aquinas is doing is saying that if a thing is moved, or if a thing goes from potency to act, then it must be from potency to act in all cases. But that has nothing to do with the idea that potency and act are, call them universal predicates. They predicate everything that exists.
Yeah, so you've read the book, right?
Can you just show me where it is, sister? I don't want to play this game. Can you just read where it is instead of asking me questions?
Yeah. If you've claimed to read it, you can see that in the text I've showed you, it says now that it's clear this thing has been moved and some as a potential is going to be towards the degree which is moved, whereas it's going to be moved by an actuality.
Why are you
He's
reading
literally
so quickly?
Like, can you let me finish? Yeah, he's literally asserting
Why are
that the
you reading
equivalence
so
of motion
quickly
is
is
going to
my
be
question.
potency to act. He's not considering
Why are
any
you speaking so
exception.
quickly?
Yeah, I'm reading it.
No, I get that, but then you stopped reading and then kept speed reading. Like you kept speed talking.
What?
I didn't catch anything that you said. Can you slow
Yeah,
it
it's in the
down and
chat.
make an argument?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
So where in this sentence, or where in these sentences, or where in the relevant section does St. Thomas Aquinas say that act and potency are universal predicates? Can you just answer that?
Yeah, because he's going to be asserting the equivalence of motion equaling potency. He's not making any sort of exception, so he's asserting a universal proposition.
Yeah, I agree that St. Thomas Aquinas thinks that every single move of potency to act is motion, but that's not what I asked you.
Yeah, so what are you asking me?
Where does St. Thomas Aquinas say that act and potency, those metaphysical principles, those Aristotelian principles, are universal and they apply predicately to all states of affairs?
Because Yeah, I'm telling you, in this text we can observe this.
If we can observe it in the text, then read where it is.
Yeah, oh my God, in the paragraph I sent you in the chat, I'm telling
The
you that he's saying
paragraph
that.
that you sent me, you just showed to me, only proves that St. Thomas Aquinas thinks that every reduction of potency to act is motion. That doesn't prove your point that every single thing that exists is predicated by act and potency.
Yeah, look again.
Okay, are you trolling me? Is this a troll?
Wait, no, you actually have to be rage baiting. Like you're literally joking.
Nowhere in here does it say that.
Wait,
You
are
are
you like?
making
Oh my
you
God.
you are schizophrenically reading St. Thomas Aquinas.
I'm
Nowhere in here
schizophrenic.
does he
No,
say
you're no.
anything about act and potency being a
Yeah, no, you're.
universal predicate for all things. He's
Yeah, you're
talking
either.
about the universal statement that all reductions of potency to act are motion. He's not saying anything about act and potency as metaphysical principles being applicable to all circumstances. He's not saying anything about that. Where
Yeah,
is he
exactly.
saying
He
what you're
doesn't.
saying he's
Yeah, he
saying?
doesn't state that he's gonna be limiting this to some sort of physical movement. He's gonna be assuming that it's gonna be some sort of metaphysical rule of reality. That's the issue.
Okay, so he is not saying it's universal. Notice how you covertly conceded that you weren't right and then moved on to
Wait,
a
what?
different
I
point.
didn't concede to anything. Like genuinely, what are you going
Okay,
on about?
if you're not conceding, then where does St. Thomas Aquinas say that act and potency are universal predicates to everything that exists?
Yeah, we can just deduct this by reading all his books.
Okay, thanks for coming in. What a joke. Where is it in the text? Oh, it's right there. It's literally not where you showed me. Oh, well, we can deduce it by reading the entirety of the Summa Theologica. Get out of here. Either show me where he says it or show me how it's a deductive entailment of something else that he said. But don't give me this. Oh, it's right there. Just read it. All right. I'm going to take someone up in a second. Just give me one moment, folks. I'm just responding to a text. All right. Yes, she was responding to the first way. Well, I mean, responding is generous. She was talking about the first way. All right.
Hello,
Ohio,
hello.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's your question about Catholicism?
Amazing. So I'm Muslim, and I'm always very respectful to Christians, and I like learning a lot about the religion, and I just want to understand a couple things because I don't really have like a lot of Christian friends to ask this about. So mainly about like Trinity, right? Like I understand. I've started to understand it a bit more from where you guys come from, that it's an essence and it's not right. Like it's just like three ways to manifest it, right? Am I
No,
correct in saying that? It's an essence manifested in three different ways.
no.
So how would you describe the Trinity?
The Trinity is a divine essence which is possessed consubstantially by three distinct persons.
Okay. And one of that persons would be Jesus, right?
Yeah, the Son, the divine Son.
Right. I understand that he, in a Christian perspective, he is considered the Word. So he was there a long time ago, right? Like before the universe. So he already had existed, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yes, he is the unbegotten Son of God, and he is, or excuse me, the begotten Son of God, and yes, he is the Word.
Awesome. So when, this is where I have like the most like difficulty understanding it, is that how can Jesus be both human and God at the same time, being that human removes a lot of his godlike attributes, if not all of them, really?
Well, that's a false assumption. The idea that because something has two natures that are united in a person, that therefore one of those persons, or excuse me, one of those natures is compromised. You're saying that through that uniting, something about the divinity or humanity has to be compromised. But I'd like to hear the argument for why that's the case. The natures aren't becoming one another. They're not meshing or mingling with one another. They are separate but united.
Interesting. So would you say he's like 100% human and 100% God? Because I hear that one a lot.
No, because God is not an ontological object of which can be filled with a percentage of something. So no.
Interesting. Okay. It's the first time I hear that from another Christian, but I guess just him
The way that classical Christian confessions will put this is that he is truly God and truly man. But the
That's
way
fine.
classical confessions will put it is not. He is 100% God and 100% man.
Okay, so like for one of the things about Jesus is that like he ate food, right? What would happen if he didn't eat food, for example, right? He would perish, he would die, right?
Yeah, yes. Is there a question there or?
No, I'm building up to something. I'm just asking.
Got
So,
you. Can
okay,
you just get to the last part of the question?
sure, I can make it quick.
Whatever the thing you actually want to ask about is, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So God died, and well, that's the way that Christians see it, is that Jesus died, and for 3 days, then he resurrected, right?
Just to be clear, when you say God, because you're not speaking precise, I understand from an Islamic perspective why you wouldn't make this distinction, but it is an important distinction. We would say that the divine person of the Son died on the cross. We wouldn't say God because God could refer to any of the three persons of the Trinity.
So a piece of it died.
No, because we don't believe that persons are parts because we're not modalists.
And so what died though? Is every
I just
single
told you
part
the
hold on.
divine person of Jesus.
Yeah, 1 second. Is every single part, every single gear in that God, is it needed? Can God still be God without the Holy Spirit? Can he still be God without the Father?
I've already corrected this error, but I'll just do it again. We don't believe that the persons are parts, so your question is incoherent.
So I'm confused on the nature of Jesus then.
I can tell.
Yep. No, I thought you were gonna actually like explain it.
Well, again, I'm just pointing out when you say that we believe that God are parts, or that the persons are parts, and that if you combine all these parts, what if you took away a part? You're just showing that you don't understand Christian theology, which is fine, but I'm just saying your question assumes false premises.
Now I'm asking you to, if you could like explain to me how you see God, like how you see Jesus, I guess, because it's a little confusing for me.
We can go back to the very beginning. So God has one essence or one nature.
Okay.
But that one essence or one nature is possessed or is consubstantially possessed of the same substance or nature by three distinct divine persons, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Jesus Christ is one divine person who possesses both a divine nature and a human nature. That's the basic confession of Christian Christology and Trinitarian theology.
Interesting. So what is that essence itself?
The essence of God, you mean? The divine essence?
Yeah. Yep.
It would be all of the things that we say are true of the divinity. So we say that there is omniscience, there is omnipotence, there is pure act, there is immutability, there is impassibility, there is eternity, there is aseity, these predications.
Interesting. So Jesus saying, and I can't quote the exact passage.
Matthew 13:32. He says,
You're already guessing what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I know the scripted.
But no, I'm talking about the what does Matthew say? What were you gonna say? Because
no one knows the hour except the Father.
I was gonna ask that too, but that was gonna be later. But I was gonna ask another thing too.
Okay, well, if you'd like to ask something else, you're more than welcome to.
All right, so basically, like, I guess that was going to be omniscience, but for his omnipotence, omnipotence is being above all. It's being the authority, ability to control everything.
No, it doesn't mean that.
What would it mean to you?
Omnipotence means to be all-powerful. Omnipotentis or omnipotentis means to have all power. Potentia is power.
That's the authority over things too, right?
No.
So what
We
classifies
again,
what attribute is that grants him
you're
authority?
conflating authority with power. By power, we don't mean authority necessarily. By power, what we
All right.
mean is
This is
abilities. And is it okay if I explain it to you before you cut in and ask a different question?
that's fine. It's just distracting the point. Like getting into the
It's
language
actually
is
not a distraction because you don't understand what we mean by omnipotence, and you're going to make an argument that misunderstands the Christian doctrine of omnipotence.
go ahead.
Omnipotence in Christian theology doesn't mean authority. That's not a synonym for power. A synonym for power would be ability, abilities and liabilities. If I have the ability to lift a water bottle, like for example, a baby might have the liability of not having the ability to lift a water bottle. That's the Christian doctrine of power, abilities and liabilities, not this concept of authority or this vague sense of authority that you're talking about.
Okay. In the same way, the question still goes the same way. But so during the 40 days, right? In the desert, how could he have been tempted by the devil? How was that possible? How would
Because
he
classical Christian theology makes a distinction between temptation, which is internal, and temptation, which is external. So I'll give you an example. If someone offers me a piece of chocolate cake, and internally I desire to eat that chocolate cake, but I decide to resist eating it because I believe that I want to be healthy more, that's an example of an internal temptation. Something about my desires were plucked on or pulled on, and I resisted my desires. If someone comes to me and they say, Christian, I'm here to tempt you with engaging in sodomy or something like that, because I have no desire to engage in sodomy, the only sense in which I've been tempted is externally. Someone has offered me the ability to sin, and because I have no desire to sin, I've simply rejected it. So there is internal or external temptation. Jesus was tempted externally and not internally.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. Okay, that actually makes sense. That's good. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
and then that Matthew part is, we've been
Matthew
circling
13,
around it.
32.
Yeah, you already know what I'm going to ask, so.
Yeah, for sure. The way the classical Christians get at this is by saying that to know something or to not know something is used all over the Old and New Testament to not refer to a lack of knowledge or call it a ignorance about a matter of fact, but is instead about a refusal to declare. So I'll give you an example in the New Testament. St. Paul says that he is not appointed to know anything other than Christ crucified. Now, no one thinks that St. Paul is saying that the only fact that he knows is that Christ is crucified. He obviously knows many other facts beyond just that Christ is crucified, but the word to know there, or agnosto, to know that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all he knows as a matter of fact. It means it's all that he's permitted to declare, or it's all that he has the authority to reveal. So when it says that the angels and the Son don't know the hour, the simple reading of that, if you read the entirety of the New Testament and you read it in context, is that it's not appointed for the Son or the angels to reveal the hour. It is the Father's prerogative to reveal the hour, and that's why only the Father knows or reveals the hour.
Interesting. Okay. And then I had. All right, that's okay. That actually does make sense. Yeah. So if I understood, he just chose. He's declaring that he won't say. That's what he's saying.
Yes. Well, and I would just say this, brother. If St. Matthew was trying to teach us that Jesus was not God and that he didn't know the hour in the sense that he was lacking knowledge, then why in that very same gospel would St. Matthew say unambiguously that Jesus Christ knows all things?
Could be a
Why would he?
contradiction, I guess, right?
Why would he make the affirmation that Jesus knows all things if he was going to several chapters later say that Jesus was ignorant about the hour? He's not saying Jesus is ignorant. He's saying that it's not the prerogative of the Son to reveal the hour of the second coming. It is the Father's prerogative because the Father has that unique mission to reveal it to the world.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, Yeah, that makes sense now. All right. And I just had one final question before I go.
Sure.
So many Christian scholars, and I wouldn't be able to quote their names, but um, I have read the articles and I have them downloaded in my folder. But they have said that the story of the adulterous woman, are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
They say it's a fabrication. What would
Mhm.
you say to that? Do you think it is, or do you think it isn't, or do you think it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect it?
Well, it certainly matters. I think that when you say Christian scholar, maybe you just mean culturally Christian or Christian in a kind of vague and unspecific sense. But there is no classical Christian that believes that the Bible has these errors or these additions which compromise the text. So I don't know. I've not in great detail read or listened to the arguments that these critical scholars will give. But to be completely honest with you, many of these so-called Christian liberal scholars will doubt even the existence of the New Testament figures. They'll doubt the existence of Paul. They'll doubt the existence of Jesus and of Matthew and of Mark and of Luke and of John. I think I'm not that inclined to listen to people who are so radically skeptical of the New Testament. They don't even accept the things that even classical atheist scholars accept of the New Testament. So I'm suspicious of their motives and I'm suspicious of their ability to read the text in a proper
Yeah,
way.
that's a valid concern to
And by
have,
the way,
but
the same thing with the liberal scholars of the Quran who read the Quran and the Hadiths improperly because they're Western liberals.
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but I guess to me, like the evidence for this, for my not claim, but my question is that like early church fathers themselves didn't comment on this. They had no commentary, and they used to give commentaries about everything, right?
Well, can I just say two things to that?
Sure.
The first is, even if that were true, that would be an argument from silence. So just because the church fathers don't commentate on a particular verse doesn't mean that it didn't exist or that it wasn't ancient. We wouldn't expect church fathers to commentate on every single verse that exists. But secondly, we don't have all of the writings of the church fathers, brother. We have fragments.
That is
Many
true.
of those early writings have been lost to time due to poor preservation. So even if the church fathers did commentate on those sections of scriptures, including the story with the harlot, even if that were true, we might not have any of those
Yeah,
commentaries.
but even then, I think that I'm pretty sure that they're missing from like the old, the older um manuscripts, complete manuscripts of the Bible, including like, Sinaiticus and what's the other one?
Codex Sinaiticus. But the,
Sinaiticus.
the important thing to remember is, though,
Hmm.
Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus are also fragmentary.
Hmm.
They are not the earliest copies of the New Testament that scholars agree were published. And not only that, but even as they exist, there are various fragments that may or may not be present. So we don't know whether or not they would have been in Codex Sinaiticus or Codex Sinaiticus. The purpose of manuscriptural science is not to find the earliest source and then claim that this is the authentic source. It's to look at the entire manuscript tradition and see what is most common and universal among the manuscript traditions. That's what's most likely to be in the original manuscripts, is the
Yeah,
most common and universal
I
portions
guess,
of it.
yeah. And then I'm pretty sure in other manuscripts it's found in Luke too, but I don't think I have a problem with that. I think it's just misplacements of the in the older ones. But okay, that does clear things up a bit. All right, well, that's interesting. I'll have to go now though. So, but that was a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. I hope it was useful to you. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, brother. See you.
all right, God bless you. All right, Blue wants to come up. Matthew 11:27. All things have been entrusted to me by my Father. Everything that is of the Father's is Jesus's. And if it is true that the Father, if it is true that it is of the Father to know all things, then it must be true that it is true of the Son. Now, there are also more explicit statements of Jesus' omniscience in other gospels, but I was limiting myself just to the Gospel of Matthew for the argument. But anyway, also in the preceding context of Matthew 24, where Jesus is talking about the hour, in the preceding context of that, Matthew is laying out just how much the Son does know about the second coming. The Son is revealing things that he couldn't possibly know in the absence of having this kind of predictive power. And then someone might say, well, doesn't that just make him a prophet? Well, maybe Jesus is prophetic in that way. But we have to ask the question, is he only a prophet? So all that verse shows is that Jesus is acting in a prophetic capacity, which is perfectly fine because he is the prophet of prophets. But is that all Jesus is? And if we read the rest of the New Testament with that understanding, we can see that Jesus is not merely a human prophet. He's, of course, God Almighty. So that's the kind of, I would make that more modest argument, which is Jesus is acting in a merely prophetic capacity in that verse, but that's not a problem. God the Son can act in a prophetic capacity and still be God. It doesn't actually say that. Handed over is a terrible translation of that if you read the Greek. Yeah, no, I mean, again, one of the difficulties of modern biblical translations is that many of them just kind of make, I would say, suboptimal translations for the finer theological questions. So the best translation I would say of the Greek there is all things have been entrusted to me by my Father. Entrusted is a much better term than handed to me, because handed to implies that it was at one point not present. But that sentiment that it at one point wasn't present is not in the Greek. We get no sense from the Greek that this is something that is happening or this is something that has occurred in the past. We get the sense that this is something that has always been true of the Son. No. Well, it's not a responsibility, remember. So the things that are of the Father are not merely responsibilities, they're things of nature or essence. So you can't be assigned a nature or an essence by the Father, right? On our view, we would say that the all things that have been entrusted or that are present in the Son that are also present in the Father, entrusted or given to is the right word, because remember, we believe that Jesus is begotten of the Father. So Jesus receives his divinity from the Father. Again, not in a temporal sense, but in a mode of procession, in an order of procession. So it is perfectly fine to say that Jesus receives from the Father his divinity or has been entrusted by the Father with that divinity. The error is thinking that such a thing refers to temporally ordered series or something like that, a time in the past. That's correct. Yeah, I mean the begotten son of God, and like these internal Trinitarian relations is what I'm talking about. So that's you'll find verses in the Bible where it speaks about Jesus receiving things from the Father. This isn't an issue in classical Trinitarian theology because Jesus receives all things, including his nature, from the Father, just not temporally or as a cause, but as a principle. The Father receives what you could call the relational predications. So take, for instance, the Father's paternity. The Father receives filiation from the Son. So the relation of filiation, which originates from the Son and goes back to the Father. Okay, let me just, I realize that I have to actually break down Aristotelian relations. So in Aristotelian metaphysics and in Aristotelian thought generally, a relation is conceived as the following. There is an origin of the relation, There is what's called the relatio or the relatio or the kind of relation, and then there is the terminus. So a part of every relation is where the relation comes from, to whom it is going or to what it is going, and then the kind of relation. The kind of relation we have here is a relation of opposition. It's a relation of identity. The relation of filiation comes from the Son to the Father, and the relation of paternity comes from the Father and to the Son. So the Father, in that sense, receives the relation of filiation from the Son. But again, not temporally, just as a matter of, call it the principled procession of relation. We have to speak of it that way. So does that make enough sense, or did you have other questions about that? Yeah. The principle by which the relation is processed. So principle in Aristotelian metaphysics, a principle doesn't necessarily mean a cause, it just means an origin of. So the Son or the Father is the origin of this internal divine relation of filiation or of paternity to one another. They both share that relation with one another. No, dependency is not the right word, because dependency is a species of contingency, and contingency is a species of causality. But remember, we're not saying that this is a cause. This is not an internal cause. It's an internal procession from one principle to a terminus, or from an origin to a terminus. So we're not saying it's a causal relation. We're saying that it's a principled relation. Can I give you an example in the created world that might help you understand? If we take a line, if we draw a line on a piece of paper, we wouldn't say that the beginning of the line on the left of the page, say, is the cause of the end of the line on the right side of the page. But we would say that the beginning of the line on the left side is the principle of the line on the right side, because it flows forth from it. That's the one that St. Thomas gives. I stole it from him shamelessly. But the point would be, not every origin, not every principle from origin to terminus or from beginning to conclusion is a causal principle. Okay, does that clear that up a little bit more? Because I think sometimes people can think that there's just a special kind of causality happening in the Trinity. That the Trinity is just another kind of causality, but it's like a special divine one that doesn't involve contingency or that doesn't involve those kinds of things. No, it's not causality to begin with. That's why we use the word beget, or we use the word procession instead of the word cause, because we're trying to speak of something different. Okay. Did you have any other questions, or? Okay. Well, if you think of anything, just let me know. All right, no problem, brother. God bless you. Telly 19, what did you want to talk about? What's your background? Are you an atheist, agnostic, Muslim, Christian? Okay, an atheist.
Hello?
Hello, are you over the age of 16? Got to be over the age
Yeah.
of 16.
hmm
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question. Oh, actually, let me tell you, like, what I believe in first. So, like, because I don't like really calling myself an atheist or, like, putting labels onto myself, because it just, not everything fits or is, like, perfectly what I believe, you know?
Mhm.
So I, like, you know how you can't really imagine a new color? So I think whatever had made us, it would never, like, humans will never be able to comprehend or be able to think of something that could do that, because we do have limits to our imagination. given the fact that we can't even think of a new color. You see what I mean?
Right, but what if that color was all powerful, all knowing, and all good, and desired to reveal itself to us? Because that's I think the error that's happening here. I agree that human beings may not be able to, by their own power, understand all the things of God. But what if God, in his goodness or in his plan, wanted to reveal those things about him to us? Are you saying that God is not capable of revealing things to us so that we can understand it?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that
Okay.
nobody would really know. And a book is, if God really like, if God is all knowing, God knows what it will take to have everybody in the world believe in him, but he doesn't do that. And I'm like, he
What's
can
your
make it,
evidence that he doesn't do that?
he doesn't though. Because you see the
I mean,
world, there's people like me that
are
are
you
atheists.
saying that it's impossible for someone to have enough evidence for a claim and still not believe it?
Okay, now what are you talking about?
Like, take for instance, like flat earthers. Is it possible for someone to believe the earth is flat, even if there is enough evidence to say the world is round?
People that are flat earthers actually, that's your community though.
That's
You want to
my
know why?
community.
Yeah, people
Where
that
does the Catholic Church teach that the earth is flat?